Okay, I'll call this regular meeting of council to order, and if I can ask everyone to please rise for the national anthem. Okay, I'll now ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Alderman Conk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, I have a conflict with ASR 034, grant donation applications.
Okay, I will have the clerk note that. And then we're moving on to delegations. So we'll start with the first one tonight. We have Mr. Roger Alley here and Joe Maggiolo, both from One Foundation, the board of directors, and they're here regarding funding priorities. So if you just press the button there, the light should come on and you'll be all set.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Jeffs and council members. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity today. You may notice that we have a new logo on the first slide, the Niagara Health Foundation. So we recently rebranded the organization last week. So we are very excited to do that. And the reason for that is to better align ourselves with Niagara Health. And you will see in the weeks and months to come more information about our rebranding. So I want to start with an update, specifically, who is the Niagara Health Foundation. And our mission is to raise funds to support the Niagara Health system. And we have a shared vision, and that vision is to support healthcare in Niagara, in particular for donors who are selecting charity to support for healthcare, that they would choose the Niagara Health Foundation to support the health system. Now, just to put things into context with Niagara Health, their purpose is extraordinary caring to every person, every time, and our shared vision is to create a healthier Niagara. And our fundraising actually supports all of the 6 sites across Niagara Health, in particular the Douglas Memorial Site, the Greater Niagara General Site, Niagara on the Lake, Port Colborne, St. Catharines, and Welland Hospital sites. Now, I'd like to also give you an update in terms of our redevelopment project. Just recently, last month, Minister Hoskins was in Niagara Falls, and we received confirmation that the Niagara Falls Hospital is moving forward, but we also received information that the Welland Hospital would remain open, and in particular that the emergency services and the full diagnostics will continue. So our role as a foundation is to support those initiatives, and we will be mounting a significant capital campaign to support not only the building, but the expansion of the services in the Niagara region. In my presentation tonight, I wanted to provide some context to the patients that are served, not only across our 12 municipalities, but also just specifically in Wainfleet. So for the last year in 2016, Niagara Health had just over 5,000 visits from residents in Wainfleet. And our emergency and urgent care centers continue to be very busy. We've had over 200,000 visits, but in particular, over 1,400 of those were from residents in the Wainfleet area. Medical imaging is a significant thread through all of our patient experience, and we have over 367,000 exams that are done, and also over 40,000 surgeries across the board. In our women's, babies, and children's program, we've had 3,000 births in the last year, so we're a very busy hospital system. One of the things that I'd like to share or remind everyone is that our fundraising includes equipment and replacement equipment, because that is not covered through the government. So it's purely through all the fundraising that we do in the community to upgrade the equipment and also to replace any equipment that needs to be replaced. Since 2014, during our amalgamation, over $9.5 million have been transferred to the Niagara Health to support redevelopment projects, and it really scans the full gamut. It includes enhancing our cancer care program, which is a regional program. We had an endoscopy program that we replaced all of the equipment. Our ophthalmology in Welland, which is the hub for any renal or cataract surgeries. All of the equipment there, including a new microscope, was provided, and continual upgrades to patient beds. And we also provide bursaries and also special scholarships to students who are pursuing any medical sciences programs. So the impact of philanthropy is significant. It certainly runs the gamut of all core pieces of equipment, from beds to regional program equipment like the microscope, the central monitoring system at the Welland Hospital in particular. And most recently, we undertook a campaign for medical imaging, a $2.2 million campaign, and that's something that is fairly significant and will make a huge impact to the residents across Niagara, but also to the Wainfleet community. I want to invite Joe Maggiolo up to just give his word of thanks.
Thank you, Roger, and Mayor Jeffs. I just want, on behalf of the foundation, to thank you and the council and the residents of Wainfleet for your continued support in providing the necessary money to fund these particular programs, as well as the equipment. And we thank you very much for your continued support.
And just building on what Joe has said, the township has actually donated over $75,000, which is a significant commitment. And in particular, the last donation of $25,000 went to support the mammography program at the Welland site. So the medical imaging campaign that I mentioned is one that is important and critical for us. We started that in 2016 and made a commitment of $2.2 million. And it was a priority because many of our sites did not have full digital equipment for scans, for proper diagnosis. So this was critical for us to take on this endeavor. And in particular, we are working towards completing that commitment, and we have recently made an application through the township's process to ask for your consideration to support that campaign to continue with a gift of $25,000 over the period that you see fit. So there ends my presentation, and in ending, I just want to mention some of the key events that are taking place in the next year. In particular, the Elimination Draw, which is a Welland home event, and the funds raised is going to support surgical equipment. We need to replace the anesthesia machine there. Our annual gala in February, The Kids Ultimate Challenge, we just celebrated our 5th anniversary, and all the funds go to the children's program. And lastly, the Big Move Cancer Ride. Next year will be our 10th anniversary, and all the funds raised continue to go to the regional cancer program. So thank you for the opportunity to present and give you an update, and I'm just going to pause and see if there are any questions for me.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that presentation. Are there any questions from council members? Alderman Hassels?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. Could you tell me per capita how we relate to other municipalities in the area on what we've been donating?
So I would say that your gift is similar in some circumstances with other communities, around that $25,000 to $50,000 range.
That's so you're saying each municipality's given about $25,000?
Not each. Some have given more, others have given less, but on average, it's between 25 and 50.
Okay, but I was looking at per capita, like per person. That's kind of where I'm kind of averaging it out.
Okay, I don't have that statistic per capita. I certainly have information on what each town or city, as the case may be, is giving to us.
Okay, any other questions from council members? Alderman Conk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for your presentation. I'm just curious if the ministry has given any indication with regards to the Welland site, if they're going to keep the services that are already there, are they going to increase the services, and what that may mean for the foundation looking to provide equipment for either updating what's already there or having to add equipment. Do you had that conversation?
I have not heard anything through Niagara Health, through Dr. Suzanne Johnson and Dr. Kevin Smith, of information regarding Welland in particular. But we, as a foundation, continue to make commitments. So in addition to the $2.2 million, early in the spring, we made a much broader commitment of $1.7 million, which includes replacing equipment in Welland, and in particular the anesthesia machine and other pieces. So we continue to focus on how we can upgrade the essential equipment at that site, as well as Port Colborne and other neighboring communities. You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, then thank you very much. We appreciate the presentation tonight. Good to see both of you here.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffs.
And I'll just look for a motion from council members to receive the presentation. So moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Hessels. All those in favor, and that's carried. All right, so now we have our next delegation. We have Mr. Brian Lambie, who's here regarding the Morgan's Point road allowance.
Thank you, Mayor Jeffs, members of council. I've reviewed the staff report that was prepared on this matter and have a couple additional comments to make. This situation was created many years ago when the municipality constructed Morgan's Point Road. And if I could have the first sketch, thank you very much. That sketch shows the location of the road in front of my client's property. You can see the red line, that's the actual layout of the road, and to the left of it, that wide white portion is the actual road allowance. So Morgan's Point Road at that point is extremely to the east, and it covers the easterly 30 or so feet of the road. On the next sketch, you'll see Morgan's Point Road as it goes further towards Lakeshore Road, and as it gets to Lakeshore Road, it's back within the original 66-foot road allowance. So this variance is only at the south end of the road. Now there are other properties that are affected by this location, or this mislocation. On the next sketch, you will see two properties, one on the north side of my client's property and one on the south side. The one to the north is 11446. that property has a house that is very close to the road allowance, and to the south, 11442, that dwelling actually encroaches onto the road allowance. So there are in total 4 properties affected by this. One has already been resolved. That's the one further to the south. And if we go to the next sketch, you can see that property at the very south end, 11436. That house was almost entirely on the road allowance. So that was the purpose of conveying that parcel a few years ago. I would suggest that to grant my client's request would not set a precedent, because there are only 4 properties affected by this misalignment of the road, the one that's already been rectified and the 3 I just referred to. The houses going further north on Morgan's Point Road are all within the normal boundaries of the road allowance, so nobody else is affected other than these 4 properties. The road allowance at my client's property is approximately 100 feet in width, and this should give ample room for any future improvements within the road. Also, Morgan's Point Road is a dead-end road at this point and is not a major thoroughfare or arterial road. So if my client's request is granted, he'll be given a much bigger building envelope to locate his house within that property. So I'd ask if the municipality would consider the request and ask staff to have evaluation done. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Are there any questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much for the presentation, and then the report's going to be dealt with a little bit later in the agenda.
Thank you very much.
So I will look to council for a motion to receive, moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Conk. All those in favor, that's carried. And now our third and final delegation tonight, we have Ms. Joan Davison here from the Recreation Master Plan Implementation Committee. So Joan, whenever you're ready.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Jeffs. Good evening, and council. We really appreciate the opportunity to come before you. Okay. To just briefly go over the highlights from the Recreation Parks and Program Survey that was completed over the summer. Which one do I press here? This one? Okay, great. All right. First off, to let you know, this is just the highlights, and the full document is available for people. So we just wanted to pick out the things that we thought stood out. First off, who responded? About 183 individuals responded. The surveys were completed between May and September. And if you'll notice the pie chart that's been put on this slide, the results really were evenly distributed across the township. So we were really excited to see that, and we are kind of hoping that we can drill down into that data and see what specific things people said per area, but we haven't been able to do that yet. But we were happy to see that distribution. Age ranges, there was a good cross-section of ages. 80% of the respondents were women, but as you can see, and the largest percentage of respondents were 30 to 49-year-olds. But again, there was a good representation from those just older than that and just younger. Another piece that we thought really stood out was that the balance of the programming for families that have children and those who do not have children, it was 54-45. So we thought, well, that's really interesting. So that tells us that we need to focus on family, children's, but also for people who are adults without children in their home in terms of our programming. Residents also tell us, also one of the questions was how best to communicate. And the number one was Facebook, but then in order of percentage, flyer, email, and then notices with taxes. And I think there were lots of comments from the survey, and communication had a lot of comments, and so we really will look to how to incorporate those improvements in all the communications, but look to using Facebook a lot more than we have been. next series of questions looked at activities that residents were interested in. And the first question was, what do they actually participate in now? And this is in order. We took, again, the top 10. The highest percentage ranking one was walking and hiking, close to 50%. And then in order down through beach activities, public skating, and as you can read, down to co-ed baseball, which got 19%. There were other activities, lots of other activities, but we just picked the top 10 to show you tonight. And again, the full survey data and the comments are available through the recreation coordinator. Top programs that residents would like to see offered. So these would be new things. The top one that came through was fitness classes, yoga, Zumba, again, some floor hockey, some focus on kids' fitness class, and then down into some skating. And the cycling club, the basketball, and the tennis lessons, they all received the same percentage, so we just put them all together. So again, a pretty active community. And our infrastructure currently supports these top interests. So in terms of thinking about adding new programming, we already have the infrastructure in place that, finding instructors and things like that, we already have the space that could accommodate those kinds of things. Top requested improvements to infrastructure. Top one was beach access, walking path, parks and playgrounds, arena, nature opportunities, cycling, skate park, baseball diamond, fishing, tennis courts, and soccer fields. Those were the top 10. And again, we did have some very rich commentary in the survey that will be used by the operations department around maintenance suggestions and improvements. So again, there's lots of other data that I'm not sharing with you tonight that residents suggested, lighting, changing fencing, just different things like that they had to offer. We did ask specifically a specific question around a walking path. The Recreation Committee has had a kind of dream that we would look to developing a walking path around the soccer fields, and so we asked that question specifically, and we got a very high percentage of residents. Not only did they say that's a very common activity for them to do, they also close to 67% agreed that would be something they'd be interested in seeing. So a little bit more. I know that when I came before you, and Ann McKibben, the other co-chair, when we came before you in August, we showed you this in terms of a potential look at the walking path project for 2018. And really the proposal here is I don't know if you can see it on that slide of that outline, but it would be in the town center. And so that really augments the services when people are using the arena, when they're using the soccer fields, when they're using the library, when they're using they come to community meetings or the Marshville Heritage Village. It's all accessible if we use this kind of location. The project can be done in stages, and we have put forward a budget request that is obviously in another document as a recommendation. And finally, the key survey, we were very happy with it because the survey actually confirmed that the residents felt that the work that the committee is focusing on, the residents highlighted as things that they were excited about or that they were wanting. Walking trails, beach access, cycling, recreation programming. Those are all the things that are in the master plan that we've been working on over the last few years. So we want to obviously continue to do that. The residents also support enhancement to our existing infrastructure, and our existing infrastructure is well suited to provide for future programming needs. So we were very grateful for Jeremy's work and the staff's work around the survey, getting that out to people, and we really thank you for your support and for all of the citizens who contributed to the survey. And that's all the highlights for tonight. Any questions?
Okay, thank you so much for that great presentation. Are there any questions from council members? Who wants to go first? No questions from council members. It's remarkable. That's because it was such a great presentation. Okay, well, thank you, Joan. So I will look for a motion then to receive the presentation. So moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Hessels. All those in favor? And that is carried. So now we are going to move on to the Christmas card contest winners. So We do this every year, and I always look so forward to this. So I am just going to head on down there and call our recipients up, and I'll say a few words when I'm down there. She couldn't be here tonight, but I want to thank the schools and the kids for participating, and I always stress every year that this is, this artwork goes out to a lot of different people. It goes out to MPs, MPPs, all our partners in the region and in the community. So they get a lot of mileage and they get a lot of name recognition. So if they ever want to enter politics, they've already kind of got a foot in the door. So I want to thank them for taking the time, because we really appreciate it, and we really look forward to seeing what the children come up with, and then we get to choose, and we have a lot of fun with it, and then having it all done up and mailing them out and everything. So we really appreciate it. I want to let you guys know that it's a big contribution to the community when you do something like that, and I hope that when other things come up as you get older, that you'll continue to participate in different things that we have going on, because it's really important to us and to everybody, and we really thank you for that. So now that I've said all that, I'm going to call both of you up at the same time. So we have Coralie Gooder and Zach Vandenveld. So if you both want to come on up, and I think we're going to have a photograph. Who's doing the photo? Lee. Okay. All right. So come on up. So what I'm going to do, first shake your hand. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And I'll get you to hold that. And maybe if you can stand right over here. And then I will shake your hand, sir. Thank you very much. Congratulations. And actually, you know what? I'm going to take the certificates so that everybody, because the whole point is your artwork, and we can't see it. We'll make sure you get the right ones. All right. Can I stand in the middle? Excellent. Okay. Look at these. And Amber, who works for us, did them up and framed them and everything with the sparkles. So I think it's an extra added touch. Okay. We're good? Okay. The flash didn't go. Being a photographer, I want to make sure that we're good. I know, well, I'm like, I can see us after saying. I don't know if it's gonna go. Do you wanna, you know what? Do we wanna use your phone just to be on the safe side? Sorry, I'm kind of a control freak when it comes to photography. Then I get to hang out with these guys longer too. Okay, good job. So I'm going to hand these back to you, and just make sure I have the right ones. So this is yours, and I'm going to hope that you have a snow day tomorrow. So it kind of sounds like it. So thank you again, guys. I really appreciate it. Stick around. We won't make a mistake for the rest of us. Okay. So now we will move on to my mayor's remarks. So we'll go through these really, really quickly. We continue to do our site visits to local businesses. Lee and I are going out and visiting the local businesses. So since our last regular meeting of council, we've been to Feeder Soap and Essentials, Decker's Auto, and 24/7 Water. And we do look, I think we're kind of putting it on hold for the next couple of weeks, but then we'll pick it back up again in the new year. And then on Wednesday, I attended a wonderful Christmas lunch put on by the seniors over in the seniors' room, and they were very, when I got in there, a few of them were very quick to thank us for the renovations and the expansion of the room. And that group is really growing, because I don't even know how they fit in there before, because it was full. They had 3 long tables, and it was full. So yeah, it's a good thing that it has been expanded, and they were quite happy with it and said it was nice and warm. And so I got to see a lot of familiar faces, and they do have people coming from outside of Wainfleet as well. So they have a great group there, and it's always fun to visit with them. And this past Friday evening, I was at the Open Arms Mission Christmas fundraiser banquet at the Croatian Hall in Welland. And they said, it was funny when they were talking about their campus, their ministry campus, they said it was in Wainfleet. And I didn't correct them, but I think it's technically in Welland, the one on Forks Road. So we got the old Claire's Delivery Building. So I believe that's... No, I know, but they said it was, so I let them think that it was. I thought we could take credit for it. But anyway, it's a great organization, and they do a lot of great work, and I've been able to attend a few more of their events than I have in the past, so getting to know the people there and all the great work that they do. Yesterday, the United Way, South Niagara United Way, held another Food for Thoughtfulness fundraiser. And this time it was at Bremfields in Port Colborne, so I attended that, and it was another great event, and I think it's great that they're doing that on a monthly basis. And tomorrow, I will be at the grand opening ceremony for the new Provincial Offences Court facility in Welland, so I'm sure many people have seen that since it's been built and driven by it, but I haven't actually had an opportunity to be in it. That's probably a good thing. So looking forward to seeing that. Some people got that joke. Regional Council will meet this Thursday evening, and our 3rd annual Food for Photos will be December 9th, this coming Saturday, from 1 to 3 in the library. So that's something that Carrie has been putting on to have photos with Santa, and then the food is then given to the firefighters for their Christmas baskets. I will be the one photographing the children with Santa, and then that's followed by a free skate at the Wainfleet Arena. And then I have on here that the next MPCA board meeting is December 20th, but I have a feeling that might have been canceled, so into the new year, so I'm not 100% sure on that. If anybody wants to confirm, send me an email. And the township offices will close for the holidays at 2 p.m. on Friday, December 22nd, and reopen the morning of Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018. And the mayor's levy, New Year's levy, will be held at the 2x4 this year on the afternoon of Sunday, January 7th, 2018, from 1 to 3. So we always seem to get a good turnout, so I hope that that everybody here will attend, and tell your friends. And we've got a nice new sign outside that we can advertise it on, so hopefully we'll get good attendance and we can visit with everybody. And then our next meeting of council will be a budget meeting on January 9th, 2018, followed by a regular meeting on January 23rd. And then I will just end with, I'm going to mention just a couple things. So first of all, this is Meredith's last council meeting for a while. I didn't tell her I was going to say that tonight, but so Meredith will be leaving for maternity leave, so we will miss her dearly. So we still get to see you for a couple more weeks, but the last council meeting for a while. So we wish you all the best, lots of nights without sleep, and maybe not, maybe you'll be lucky. And then I also want to introduce, we're very excited, introduce our new interim chief, Lee Smith, who comes to us, I guess, kind of out of retirement, but from Niagara Falls, and we're very, very excited to have you on board, and we know you bring a lot of experience, and Lee already said that your sense of humor fits in with our kind of warped sense of humor around here, so that's great. It's a good fit. And then they're not here tonight, but I also want to thank Sean Schutten for being the acting chief, and I want to thank Matt DeVries as well, who is the association president, but for stepping up and helping us out. So welcome aboard, and we got some good stuff happening. So that is it for my mayor's remarks, and now we can move into the adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November 14th, 2017, and the minutes of the special meeting of council held on November 29th, 2017 be adopted as circulated.
Sorry, somebody bumped the camera there in the presentation. You're all crooked. There, that's better. Okay.
Okay, so just had a little technical difficulty there. So I need a mover and a seconder for the minutes. Moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Conk. Any discussion? Alderman Hessels.
Yeah, on the special meeting, you're quoted in the paper here that we waived the rights for the tendering process, and I didn't see that reflected in the minutes, so I don't know if it sounds like here you're saying we agreed to waive the tendering rights for that special meeting, but that didn't happen?
No, so that's how it was printed in the paper, but I had just said to him that council has the right to go ahead without following the procurement bylaws, or the procurement. So I don't know if the clerk wants to speak to that? So again, that was what he had said, that we had waived it, but that wasn't what I had said. I had said that the council has the right to not do their procurement policy. So is that a question then that you have procedurally? You're concerned that we didn't?
Did you follow procedural then?
Well, that's what I'm looking to the clerk. So we'll have to get clarification and maybe bring that back at a next council meeting.
Right, so through your worship to Alderman Hessels, I'm just going back to the recommendations that were in the report, and I don't see in those recommendations that we had waived our procurement policy. So if you're looking for that to be brought back.
And I know we didn't waive them, but that's our procedure, that we must waive those rights before you can say that that we've agreed to it. Like, before you can make that that motion to do this, you would have had to ask the question and have the rights waived to avoid that tendering process, if I'm correct.
Sure, I guess, I'm not sure if you want to speak to the report.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hessels. Yes, as per Article 15 of our procurement policy, we may waive the formal bid process at the discretion of council in this case, because the purchase was greater than $50,000.
So my question is, did you have to ask the question to waive the rights for that procedure?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hessels. The procurement policy doesn't specifically state that we have to say we're waiving the rights. I think the intention of the proposed report was that by council approving it, they were therefore waiving that right and entering into Article 15 of our procurement policy.
Yeah, I'd like to have a real clear definition of that, because if we can just override what we can, our tendering process or any rights that we have, because I know when we waive other things, we vote on it, and then if you agree or disagree, so that's where I'm having a little difficulty here.
No, I get what you're saying, and that's why I said procedurally, like I know what you're talking, if we want to waive the procedural bylaw to amend the agenda or different things like that. So I think the opinion of staff is that by going ahead and doing what we did, we waived, and that's what I was trying to convey to the media, but we can absolutely get that answer I know you're not going to be here, but we can get that answer even through an email, and then if it needs to be discussed at the next council meeting, we can certainly do that. Okay, any other questions or comments to what Alderman Hassel's brought up or to the minutes in general? Okay, it looked like you were going to say something. All right, seeing none then, I'll call the question on the minutes. All those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, so now we're on to our first staff report.
That administrative staff report ASR 32, 2017 regarding temporary vacancy on council and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Alderman Dijkstra, seconded by Alderman Hessels. Is there any discussion on this report? Alderman Hessels.
Yeah. Just reading the report, it says, as acting mayor, I always thought it was deputy mayor. So I kind of got the impression that you're leaving January 1st and she's going to be the acting mayor through. So I don't know if there's clarification, because it seems to be a little different than other times.
I'll let Meredith speak to that, but yeah, there's been some confusion.
Through your worship, to Alderman Hessel. So in council's procedure bylaw, the acting mayor is defined, means a member who has been appointed in accordance with this bylaw to act for a designated period of time in the absence of the mayor. And in addition to that, it goes along to say the position of acting mayor shall rotate on a yearly basis, starting in alphabetical order of the alderman's last name. And that council, by way of resolution, shall appoint an acting mayor in accordance with this section, who shall be a member and who shall act in the place of a mayor when the mayor is absent or refuses to act, or the office is vacant, and while so acting, such acting mayor shall have all the powers and duties of the mayor. So that's why the definition, that's why I've used the term acting mayor. It doesn't, our procedure bylaw doesn't speak to a deputy mayor, it's acting mayor.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this is the right time to bring it up, but if we're going to be on a short council, I'm not sure how long you're going to be gone for, but there's a time. I'm not sure how long. But since we're on a short council and it's only 4 to avoid any tie votes, could we have it that the acting mayor only can cast a vote on tie votes, or would that be some other place? Could that be an amendment to what we're doing here tonight, or? Because with 4 people, you could have, it rarely ever happens, but if the mayor is only there to do a tie vote, then at least that only will happen if one other alderman is missing, I guess. But
So the clerk is saying you could amend the procedural bylaw.
to allow that?
Okay, so the clerk's saying, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but that you could amend the procedural bylaw. I don't know, I don't like when we do things on the fly when we're kind of, I don't know. We can have, I want to have a very fulsome discussion.
Through your worship, to Alderman Hessel, so you can amend your procedure bylaw. However, given that we don't know what will happen in 2018, I wouldn't suggest amending it tonight, but if you are only down to 3 members and that's what you wish to do, then I would suggest you doing that at that time when you're faced with the situation. Like I said, we don't know what's going to happen in 2018, so it's hard to say.
But I take it you're taking a leave of absence well before?
It's unclear right now. So this is coming forward now for a couple different reasons. One is that Meredith is leaving, so she wanted to try and have this wrapped up before she left, to have some sort of kind of clear procedural path as to, what will happen if and when I take a leave of absence. I don't have to take a leave of absence. I'm thinking that I will, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like. And because this has never happened before, there seem to be a lot of unknowns, and we've had inquiries, and there's been a lot of discussion surrounding this. So even with the way this is worded, I have some, not concerns, but some changes that I think might be necessary to make to the recommendations. So yeah, there's nothing really kind of clear right now as to dates or anything like that. So I mean, council could decide to wait on this and until we kind of have a better idea. But like I say, Meredith was looking to kind of have this wrapped up before we had somebody come in and take her place, so that this was already kind of taken care of. And I think the region had kind of suggested they'd like to have an idea of what was going to happen. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, I guess my confusion was that it seemed like 2018, I thought you were leaving January, and Alderman Conk was the mayor for
Yeah,
the
no,
whole
a couple
period
other
of
people
time.
thought
So-
that too.
So, and we did have a little bit of correspondence, so I'm not sure if it might be a good thing to wait a little bit and get a little more, because like I say, you have this staff report, and then you're going to pass a bylaw tonight on it. It seems like you're rushing things through without people having really much input on it.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion then to,
Defer it or whatever. Yeah, and that would give Alderman Gilmore a chance too to be
Okay.
involved in the process.
defer it to the next council meeting at the end of January, or?
I would say the end, we got budget on the 9th, so I don't think we want to do it. And if you say it's not a real timing issue, then I would say the end of January instead.
I might even suggest a little bit longer in case we have somebody in Meredith's place to,
Well, that's okay. You would have a better idea when this time frame really needs to be done, so.
so you're saying leave it at the January?
If you prefer later, I think the longer we leave it, the better, like,
Okay,
because you don't plan maybe April or something, or?
that's what I would think, but again, I'm not 100% sure, so. Okay, do we want to leave it till, I think Alderman Hassels is suggesting maybe even longer into the spring, so,
Because like I say, we have been getting a little bit of feedback already, so, and right now, nobody really has had the opportunity to really look this over and give their input.
okay. Would you want to say maybe the March council meeting?
Okay, I'll say March.
Okay. So we have a seconder for that, Alderman Dykstra. Okay, so we're clear that deferring until the March council meeting. So I will call the question, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, so now we will move on to the next report.
That administrative staff report, ASR 33, 2017, regarding application for tax write-off and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
So I need a mover and a seconder for that one. Moved by Alderman Hassel, seconded by Alderman Dykstra. Any discussion or questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried.
That administrative staff report, ASR 34, 2017, regarding grant applications and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder, moved by Alderman Dykstra and seconded by, oh, surprise, Alderman Hessels. So any discussion or questions on this one? Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, could maybe Adam just speak to the report a little bit? I just want clarification that we have this report in front of us just to clarify that is so you can provide numbers for the budget. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra. Yes, that's correct. So there's two recommendations in the report. The first being that council directs staff as to what amount they want to see incorporated into the budget that can be then allocated to applicants for grants. And then the second component, with our new policy, the applications were due as of November 15th for anybody who's interested in applying for grant funding for 2018. We received 10, of which 9 qualified and have been presented in this report. So should council choose to allocate some of that budgeted funds to these today, you can do that too, or you can kind of defer the actual allocation to the budget meeting on January 9th. But the main thing that we're looking for is a number to incorporate in the budget for the January 9th meeting.
Alderman Hassels?
Yeah. The reason I asked the Niagara Foundation there what we are per capita compared to other communities, I think we should probably fall in place with them on a per capita, not as a municipality, because it supports everybody in the region, and so I don't see why Wainfleet would have to pay more per person than other ones. So I don't know if we could get that number and maybe adjust that accordingly. And then the other one is Pocomar. I'd like to know what the other municipalities, Fort Erie, Port Colborne, and Low Banks, what their cost is per capita, because I don't mind falling in line. I don't want us subsidizing them. And then the other one I do have a problem with is the rowing club. Like these fundings, I think this is Wainfleet money. And so the rowing club, that's for individual people. It's not really for the community at large. So I do have some issues with the grant that they're requesting. So I don't know if we need a number, but I'd almost say we should be taking that rowing club out. And the other ones I would like to, before we budget, find out what the other municipalities are doing, and then kind of go likewise on a per capita basis.
Okay. So Adam, do you want to speak to that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hessels. So we can certainly look into the per capita for the One Foundation and for Pocomar. In terms of, at the very least, a high-level amount to kind of act as a placeholder for the budget meeting on the 9th. In the report, I highlighted the fact that last year Council approved $31,000 in terms of a budget. The applications that came through for 2018 equated to $41,000. Should I keep with last year's amount of 31, or is there a number that I can kind of fill in, at least for the time being?
Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I understand what Adam's having to do here is trying to get an upset limit. So I would like to make the suggestion that we do defer it to our 2018 budget deliberations, because then again, Alderman Gilmore could weigh in. But maybe we could could we give you a range, or do you need a hardened number? Like, we know where we were at last year. I know you do the math, it's coming up about 10,000 or so more. Does a range help? Like, I mean, and things could get slashed and cut or added to at budget time, correct?
Yes. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dixter. So what I can do is I can put in the full amount, and then you can choose to deduct from that at a later date. I just remind council going into the January meeting that the percentage increase in levy, you have to factor in that maybe that's higher because of this right off the get.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Again, I guess I do understand what he's saying, and I don't want to be the one to say, yeah, go ahead, put the full amount in, because I know what that's going to do to our levy and as far as our taxes, but we do have the opportunity. It doesn't mean then that we're approving that. We have the opportunity to reduce it, and other council members that are absent here tonight would be able to weigh in. So I would be okay with making the motion that we do exactly that.
So, sorry, your motion then is to just put the full amount into the budget, and then we can
So
go
just
through.
for Adam can plug that number in. He's only plugging that number in so that we can then, budget time, we will chisel away at areas and see where everything fits, but then he's doing his preliminary homework here so he can,
Sure.
I would make that motion.
Okay. So, and then deal with everything at that time. Okay. So a seconder for that motion? No?
Yes, I have to second it.
Well,
but
I could second it if you don't want to.
I'll second it, but then I'll
Okay.
have something to say.
Okay. So seconded by Alderman Hessels, and you have something to say?
Yeah. I would like to see us deduct that 5,000 off there for sure for the rowing club. So instead of 10,000, 5,000, but
I think the clerk is saying that's not pertinent to, yeah, so the motion's to refer, so that means it's all going to go, so you'll have to wait until that time. Okay. Okay, so if there isn't any further discussion then, I will call the question. All those in favor of moving it over to, okay, and opposed? So that's carried. This is so weird. Okay, so Alderman Conk, come on back. All right, so now we are going on to the funding asset management.
That administrative staff report, ASR 35, 2017, regarding funding asset management and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Conk. So any questions or discussion on this one? Or Adam, if you want to give us a high-level overview?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to all of council. So back in November, council gave me the direction to apply for the grant. In preparing the application for it, the FCM requires a very specific resolution be passed by council. And in talking with who will be helping us do it, the recommendation was to take it back to council to get that very specific approval rather than just forward on the previous approval, so that there's no kind of confusion in terms of what council has approved.
Okay, so any questions on this one? Alderman Hassels.
yeah, going ahead with this, our chances of getting these grants are, would you have a rate?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hessels, nothing's 100% guaranteed. I do know because we're utilizing this PhD student that he is determined to make sure that we get the funding so that he can continue using us as part of his project for his thesis. So I would hazard a guess that we're going to work really hard to ensure that this funding goes through. And he knows that if we don't receive the funding, we won't be going through with the project as it stands. So there's definitely an incentive on both the township's end and his end to make sure we get this funding.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried. Now we're into building reports.
The building staff report, BSR 12, 2017, regarding monthly statistical report and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
So I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Alderman Hessel, seconded by Alderman Conk. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried.
The bylaw enforcement staff report, BESR 11, 2017, regarding monthly statistical report and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
So I need a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Conk. Any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, and that is carried.
That planning staff report, PSR 13, 2017, regarding medical marijuana facilities licensing bylaw and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Conk. Any questions or discussion on this one? Nope, seeing none. Okay, so I will call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried.
That planning staff report, PSR 14, 2017, regarding Morgan's Point Road, delegation response, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Alderman Hessel, seconded by Alderman Dykstra. Any discussion on this one? Alderman Hessels.
I see the recommendation is to deny, but I'm not sure. There were a few reasons here, but I don't really see a big issue with it. The only thing I'd like to add on to that they have impact reassess their whole property, because it probably will increase their value of their property, so then their assessment might be a little better, so that's actually more money for the township than having a road allowance from the diagrams I seen, I know I wasn't at the presentation that he gave the first time, but to me, I don't see no big issues with it.
Sarah, I just wanted to ask, what MPAC, once everything's done, MPAC assesses the whole property, does it not? Or, sorry, I'll ask Adam.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Hessels. Yeah, so typically how it works is anytime a new building gets built or the change of the size of the property gets done, that information gets provided to MPAC, and they'll take that into consideration in future assessments.
Any other questions? Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't really see the reason to deny as well. However, I was just wondering, Mr. Lambie had pointed out in his delegation, there is other properties that are affected, and I'm just wondering about the precedent setting. By us selling this, should we as a municipality maybe approach the other area landowners and do it as a complete sort of thing, like for housekeeping wise, or is that something we shouldn't be doing? I don't know if Sarah would wanted to speak to that. Have you had any correspondence with some of the other property owners in the area that have got the same issue?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra, I have not communicated with the other property owners involved, but if council wished to rectify those 3 properties, as Mr. Lambie pointed out, if that's the staff direction, then we will proceed with that.
Alderman Kong, did you? I just wanted to ask a question. Mr. Lambie said that there, if I was correct, and I should have asked when he was up there, but I'll have you confirm, Sarah, that there was, we conveyed something or sold something to somebody just only 2 years ago, one of the neighbors. Was that what I saw in the presentation?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it was back in 2007, but yes, the property to the south, the township sold them part of the road allowance, particularly because part of the structure was within the road allowance. So that was done back in 2007.
Okay, but I thought toward the end of the presentation there was a dot. Maybe I must have misunderstood then. There was one of the last slides and there was a dot, and I thought something, I thought Mr. Lambie had stated that something had been sold in the last 2 years. So, but I guess I misunderstood that because I don't see Mr. Lambie nodding or any. Okay, all right, I misunderstood that then. Okay.
So yeah, so there's the 3 properties that kind of could be affected by this. And as Mr. Lambie indicated, you know, one of the properties, the house is quite close to the road allowance. I think that's where that comment came from, but.
Okay. I don't know if council wishes to make a motion then to amend the report. Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do believe that it would be cleaner deal if the other area houses affected were approached as well. Other than that, I would move to support.
Okay, so the recommendation is to deny, so we're going to have to make an amendment then to the report to support, but then I don't know if you want to incorporate your suggestion into that. Like, I don't know if that, the clerk sees that as a good idea, but to support the request and reach out to the.
Yep, exactly, that's what I'd like to do.
Okay, and a seconder for that, Alderman Hessels. Any discussion on the amendment to the report? All right, seeing, Alderman Hessels.
Yeah, I just guess that doesn't mean they have to accept that proposal, but we're just going to throw it out there, I take, right? It's not that.
Yeah, just for clarifications through you, Madam Mayor, yeah, we would, because if we're already getting an assessment value put on these, which will cost us money, they could then assess the other properties as well, and we're going to deal with it once. So I'm not saying that we have to make them or forcing any hand, but then it's going to save us spending time on it. As soon as they find out their neighbors purchased it, we're going to be right back into the same arena.
No, that's good. I just didn't want the neighbors obligated that they had to follow it. So.
Okay. All right. So that is the motion. So amending it to reflect that. So I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? And that is carried. And then we have to vote on the report as amended. Okay. So I will call the question on the report as amended. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Now our last report for the evening.
that Public Works Staff Report PWSR 22 of 2017 regarding Niagara Regional Broadband Network request and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Mover and a seconder, Alderman Conk, and seconded by Alderman Dykstra. Any questions or discussion on this report? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried. So now we're on to correspondence, and I think we have 3 that we need to deal with. And the first one being correspondence item 250, which is the Recreation Master Plan suggestion. So I don't know if council wishes to comment on that or make a motion. Make a motion to refer it to the budget, or Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I think this should be just added to budget deliberations so it can be discussed.
Okay, so a seconder for that, Alderman Hessels. Discussion on that, Alderman Hessels?
Yeah. Like I see they're asking what for $104,000. The presentation was okay. I looked at 183 people, and there's 6,000 people in the community. So with the people they got, I can understand where they get the thought of this. But I have it comes to about 117 people that are interested in a walking trail, and at that $100,000, you're spending about $1,000 a person, and so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I'd like to see a better average for money being spent, because like the survey said, 183 people, so I just couldn't justify that number.
If it's referred to budget, I think it gives time for us, like we can maybe do a little bit more research on it, and I'm sure the committee members too can give us more information, and then we can make a decision at budget time in the new year, which isn't far away, so.
It just gives you something to think about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, any further discussion on that motion? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that is carried. And then we have a resolution from the City of Port Colborne regarding continuing to support the CIP program. So I don't know if anybody wants to move to support or receive, or Alderman Conk, you're moving to support? Okay, so a seconder for that, Alderman Dykstra. Any discussion on that? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that's carried. And then our final one was added on, and so I don't know if we want to make a motion then to support that one. Is everybody familiar with that? So Alderman Hessels, you're moving to support? Okay. Seconded by Alderman Dykstra. Any discussion on that? Then did you want to discuss that?
Since I brought it up, I thought
Sure.
I'd talk it. And this is from the Ontario Federation. They actually caught it for me, and I didn't know that we were losing that right or that tax credit or whatever. So
Right.
this is one way, actually, the Federation. I wanted to change a few words in that report and have us send that resolution out to other municipalities, because this one specifically rates kind of to the OFA, and it's I could tell you what I'd like to change on it. Yeah, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but the one part where it says, whereas of salaries will likely result in less spending on rural infrastructure, or forcing councillors to absorb this charge will result in fewer candidates running for the election in 2018. Their line says, and we need more farmers at the decision-making table, not less. I would eliminate that line. And then the next one where it says, whereas the OFA, I would say, whereas the Township of Wainfleet. And then the next line there, it be resolved that the Township of Wainfleet lobby the federal government to have 1/3 tax exemption for municipal councilors reinstated. So I don't know if we could just make those little changes.
Well, I'm just wondering if it would even be better if you came, I know it's a ways away and I don't know how urgently you want this circulated, but I'm almost wondering if it'd be best if you create your own resolution, bring it to the next council meeting, and then we vote on it and circulate it, rather than kind of taking it, I don't know if you can wait till then, or?
I guess could, but there was very little changes. It's basically there's just changing a little bit of the wording because I didn't want it just related to farming.
Alderman Conk, you wanted to comment?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I mean, are you allowed to change somebody else's resolution to suit that
Well, that's
particular
why I'm
council?
wondering if
That's
it,
why I'm going,
yeah, if it'd be better if you,
They,
like,
they said it was all right that I could use this as a template.
right, but then I think that would mean then you create your own. So if, like, again, if there's no real sense of urgency, I would suggest, like, I'm glad that you brought this to our attention, and I would suggest that you just take the resolution, run it by Meredith before she leaves, and then we'll have it on the agenda for the next council meeting. And then it's just a clean new, is it, yeah, okay. Okay, so we didn't second anything, or we did? So we just, okay, perfect. Okay, so Alderman Conk.
through you, Madam Mayor, I just need some clarification. So my understanding of what happened is that Alderman Hessels is going to bring a motion to next council. So is he giving notice of motion?
I was actually going to suggest that in the notice of motion portion.
Where I'm going with this is the fact that I brought a notice of motion where we could not discuss the notice. It took 6 weeks to get my motion on the floor. So is that what's going to happen with this motion?
Through your worship to Alderman Conk. So basically what happens is I will put the notice of motion on the next council agenda. There's no discussion. That's his notice in writing. And then at the following meeting, it will be voted on.
Okay, I wanted to make that clear, that it's going to take 6 weeks to get this to where you want it to be.
Okay, I guess the other alternative is just leave it like it is and we endorse it.
That might be the better option there, Alderman Hessel, so you're thinking. Okay, so would you like to move an endorsement of this motion?
Yes.
All right. So a seconder for that, Alderman Dykstra. So I'll call the question. All those in favor, and that is carried. All right, any other correspondence? Everybody's good? Okay. So now we are going to move on to the bylaws.
That the following bylaws be read and passed this 5th day of December 2017. Bylaw number 55, 2017, being a bylaw to authorize borrowing from time to time to meet current expenditures during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2018. Bylaw number 56, 2017, being a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2018 for the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 57, 2017, being a bylaw to license medical marijuana facilities in the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw 58, 2017, being a bylaw to amend Bylaw 5, 2016, being a bylaw to establish and regulate payment of various fees and charges within the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 59, 2017, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the City of St. Catharines and the Corporation of the Township of Wainfleet for the purpose of computer-aided fire dispatch services, and to repeal and replace bylaw number 2 of 2013. Bylaw number 60, 2017, being a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw number 50, being a bylaw to appoint a fire chief for the Township of Wainfleet.
Mover and a seconder for all the bylaws. Moved by Alderman Dykstra, seconded by Alderman Hessels. Any discussion on the bylaws? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. All right, so now we're on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Alderman Conk, you have a notice of motion.
I do. I would like to give notice that I will be bringing a notice to amend our procedural bylaw with regards to motions.
Okay. Okay. All right. And no proclamations, so other business. Alderman Hessels.
Well, since it takes so long to get these notices of motion, and what I was talking about before, the procedural bylaw on voting, when we're down to a short council, would this be the time to bring that motion up? That the mayor only vote
okay.
when it comes to a tie vote?
I don't know. Since we've delayed, like we've deferred the report, I don't know if it's necessary right now to do that.
No, but it sounds like it takes 6 weeks for time you make the notice of motion till you get the motion
I
until
think
it's...
Alderman Conk's going to try and change that, so it might.
Okay. Are you?
Yeah, I think we definitely keep that on your radar, and maybe in the new year, bring it up again.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Other business. So that's your only other business? Alderman we're all going ahead of Alderman Conk. Will not be. I don't have any other business. Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not quite sure who to follow up with, but Richard Nan was looking into it, and I know he's in his absence, but now that we have an interim fire chief, maybe I should bring it to his attention. It come out of our fire implementation committee meetings, we were looking into getting those warning, pull over for flashing green light firefighter signs around the municipality, and I have seen it on our portable sign, and Richard was looking into cost and where we could locate them around the community. And I'm just wondering if anybody knows anything about that before we have our fire implementation meeting next week, and if anybody has followed up or there's been any sort of thing put in for the budget to purchase the signs, or does anybody know anything about what happened to that?
Adam's got a smirk on his face. Adam.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra. We'll certainly incorporate that into the budget. I know Richard was looking into it before he left. I haven't had a chance to talk to him where exactly that is in his portion of the budget, but I'll certainly make a note to follow up and make sure that it is, in fact, in there.
Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Adam.
Okay. Any other business? Alderman Conk.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have a few. I'm sorry I'm going to be a nag, but we're back at Lakewood. I would like to know if do we have a copy of the M&R permit there's been so much talk about with regards to the quote-unquote maintenance that's going on down at Lakewood?
I'll look to Sarah. I know I had had that discussion with Mark Tardif and with some of the other staff, but Sarah wasn't present for that, so.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Conk, yes, we do have a copy of that permit.
So we do know what the parameters are with regards to what that permit is allowing those workers to do out on Lakewood.
That's correct.
And are they violating that permit in any way, shape, or form?
To our knowledge, no.
Okay, so last night, apparently so now this is going to segue into the hours of work. These people are working beyond dark, and they're working on weekends. I'm wondering if our noise and nuisance bylaw addresses any of that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe there are provisions for times of day that work can be done, but I'm not well versed in that bylaw, so I can't comment on that right now, but I can follow up with you with a phone call maybe tomorrow once I've had a chance to speak with Mark Tardif.
Okay, well, the concern for me, from my perspective, is that, and Andrew, don't get upset, should the OMB uphold the approval that council gave for that project, I think if that happens, it's going to open us up to a whole bunch of other projects that may happen. And I'm concerned about the residents who are going to be affected by construction. They should be given at least one day off from the noise and the upheaval and the pounding and the trucks and whatnot. And so currently, they're working on weekends. They're working all day Sundays. They're working all day Saturday, and they're working into the dark. People should be allowed to enjoy their property without that nuisance of some form of construction going on. So I suppose what I'm asking is that It's great that you want to get back to me, but I would like to see staff bring forward a report with regards to what the bylaw currently says and perhaps putting more provisions in just for the future. Because again, the residents are suffering out there. They're being subjected to all this noise and confusion on weekends, and they can't enjoy their property. This was going on in the summer months. It's not acceptable.
So I don't know if Sarah wants to speak to that. So you're talking about changing the bylaw then?
Well, if we don't have any provisions for construction of any sort within the township boundaries, then perhaps there should be.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Conk, certainly if that's the motion you want to make, we can have a look at what our current bylaw has and whether there's any improvements that we can make, and we can have a discussion about that.
Okay, so you're making a motion then?
If I'm allowed to.
It's staff direction.
Staff
So it's
direction,
good.
yes.
Okay, so a seconder for that motion? Alderman Hessels. And I just wanted to ask a question quick. So do we know then, would that then change the bylaw that we'd have? I mean, I know you're going to bring a report back, but would we be looking at having to have a public meeting, or is this something that we're just making minor changes to possibly if we support it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it's always best practice to have a public meeting when changing a bylaw that affects the whole municipality. So I think the first step would be the report and some options. And then once a bylaw has been drafted with any changes, then we'll have a public meeting. And then the next council meeting, we could pass the bylaw.
Okay. Alderman Hessels.
I thought we were just going to find out what the bylaw is, bring it to our attention, and then we could see what we want to do. So that's kind of what direction I thought we were looking at here. Or do you want to change it, whether you know what's there or not?
So we need to know what's there, and we need to know, I think, if there needs to be some changes put in for the future. And again, if there isn't something in there currently to help these residents deal with the noise and the confusion, especially on weekends and after hours, especially in the winter months, then we should have something. There should be something there to protect the residents.
So go ahead, Alderman Hessels.
No, so we need to know what it is first, so we need staff to come back and tell us what it is, and then I think we can go further on to what you want, but right now, I think.
So it's more of an information report that we're requesting, not an action report. Okay, so we're clear on that. Any other questions or discussion then with regard to Alderman Conk's staff direction motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, that's carried.
So further to this, Madam Mayor, I have been asked today who the point person would be for residents to call into the township to ask with regards to inquiries for Lakewood. Is that Mark at this point? And is it going to remain the bylaw officer? Should the approval be upheld at the OMB hearing? Are we going to then depend on both Mark and Randy to keep an eyeball on these guys to make sure the 61 conditions are being followed to the letter? Or are we going to need to supplement staff in order to be able to accomplish that?
I don't know who wants to tackle that one. I see Randy reaching for the mic.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Conk. With regard to the building portion of it, any building permits that are taken out and approved would have to follow the Building Code Act and the Building Code itself. The hours of operation, which is what you're alluding to, are controlled by bylaw, so the bylaw would then have to be enforced with regard to anything that they do in violation with regard to the bylaw itself. So Mark, of course, is the bylaw officer. I strictly deal with the building side of it.
Well, okay, thank you for that, but what I'm looking at is an increase in the amount of time being spent on that site with regards to inspections, making sure they're following all the rules. Do you anticipate that you may be needing some extra help in the future should the approval be upheld at the OMB hearing?
Well, if they go ahead and, it would depend upon how many permits they take out initially with regard to inspections and whatnot. That's going to depend on, as I said, if it's, depending on how they go with, choose to do their building, it's going to determine the number of, the amount of time I'm going to have to spend out there in the field doing inspections and whatnot. 42, I believe, approximately 42 lots are going to, or 42 units will be built in there. It will take some additional time, without question. That's 42 extra versus one, considering it's one lot.
Right. So that's where I'm going with this. So do we anticipate that that might be something we're going to have to be looking at? Is additional staff to help you as the chief building official, manage that site, and/or someone to also be the point person to take inquiries from the general public?
Well, that would depend on the number of permits that come in total.
You're eventually going to get 41, I'm assuming.
Right, there's a finite number of time, obviously, to do these things. So if we have an increase that's well above the norm, then potential is that there could be some additional staff required, yes.
Okay. All right. So I'll leave that issue for now.
Can I just ask, Randy, how have you found it with we have a subdivision going in right now and then a bit of an increase in building. So how have you found managing that currently? Like, I just think it's difficult to ask, do you think you're going to need more people? I don't think you're really going to know until you're into it. But I thought this isn't a apples to apples comparison, but I think it gives maybe a good gauge. I know Sarah's been a lot busier in the last year. I think maybe that's kind of where Alderman Conk is going with this, but I was just curious, you're kind of in the thick of it right now, so how you're finding it.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, to all councillors, there has been a marked increase in the number of inspections this year. Menby Court, as you spoke of earlier, they're not building them all at once. They're going in a couple at a time, so it's relatively easy to manage. But dependent upon what happens at Lakewood, of course, that, if they came in with all permits at one time, there'd be definitely a need for some support.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Alderman Conk. Oh, Adam?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to all of council. As part of our 2018 budget, staff has been kind of talking with Randy and Mark to get Mark cross-trained so that he can also do a portion of the building inspections should we have increased volume. Having said that, there's still the two of them in bylaw and building, so we certainly will incorporate a portion in our budget for potential other consultants to come in and help with inspections, should the need be, but we can definitely talk about it as part of our 2018 budget planning process.
Okay, thank you. Just one other item. We have had some communication with a resident on Hawk Road, and I'm wondering, how are we dealing with this? I mean, fines have been levied. Property owner has ignored them. So what does the township get to do now?
Well, Mark isn't here, because I think that's definitely Mark's department, and Mark has been the one dealing with it. So I don't know if anybody can speak to that. I know I have an appointment with a resident tomorrow regarding that. So have you reached out to Mark about it? Because I know he sent us a little bit of correspondence.
Yeah. I know that he's dealing with it. However, there is another issue, of course, with the wild animals on the road and all of that. So it's the same thing. The charges have been laid, fines have been levied, but they seem to be walking right through all of this, and the township doesn't seem to be able to have any teeth to do anything further, yet we have surrounding residents who are being impacted by this. So legally, what can we do?
I think Lee wants to take this one.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Conk, there's, I can confirm that, as you mentioned, Mark is working actively on Hawk Road. There is also forward movement regarding exotic animals at large. And again, I'm bringing myself up to speed in conjunction with Mark, who is working on a program whereby once the township is able to get on board with that program, it will allow us to take a more active role in the levying and collection of fines at the municipal level, which will make it much more efficient and much more able to be dealt with at the municipal level, which should improve enforcement considerably on behalf of the residents of Wainfleet.
Okay, that doesn't really answer my question, but all right.
Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to, I don't want to speak for Mark, but I did discuss about the Hawk Road incident, and I do believe that there is a financial piece to dealing with the Hawk Road for the municipality as far as possibly township staff going out there and doing work, and I just wondered whether maybe Adam knew anything about the financial piece that our bylaw officer was talking about.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Alderman Dykstra. So I don't know the specific numbers. I know Mark is working to kind of figure out what it would cost to sort of remediate the issue from the township's perspective. We can certainly get back to you once I know what his sort of projected number for that is. He's also working with our lawyer to figure out what's the best approach going forward on that particular property. So I don't have the number, but there will be a charge, because what it would essentially entail is staff cleaning up the property. So staff time plus any equipment that we'd be using to do so.
And if I may continue, thank you for that, Adam, by the way. I do believe, and I don't want to speak again for Mark, but there's frustration all around, and he did clearly indicate that he's fully aware that the ball's been dropped on this previously to him. I mean, there's been numerous orders and everything else, but I think it's kind of precedent setting. We've never really had to clean up somebody's property, and it's very due diligently to having to go and do this, so we're trying to work through it and do it properly, so to speak. Again, I don't want to speak for Mark, but we could follow up with him.
Okay, if there isn't any other business, I will look to the clerk then for the motion to go into closed session.
The council now move into closed session to discuss item under section 239 to subsection B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, potential CAO candidate.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Alderman Hessel, seconded by Alderman Conk. All those in favor, that is carried, and we should be back shortly if people want to stick around or get home before it snows. It's up to you.